So what I'm trying to say is that once you enter the cabin of the XUV300, all you'll say is, wow, what a nice cabin.
This is Ashish Masih Cars, helping you buy better.
Well, so the first thing you'll appreciate about the cabin of the XUV300 is this. This is the sound you'll get. It's a very reassuring third. This car, remember, is the safest compact SUV. It comes with a 5-star Euro NCAP rating, which makes it really safe. And you'll also like the seats, because the seats offer you better cushioning than the ones on the XUV300. And the support also for the lower back is better. The support for your under thighs also seems just a step ahead of the XUV. In terms of the equipment, it's a decent car. The decent level of equipment is there. The touchscreen, though, isn't as cool to look at. Tata should add a few colors to it to make it look cooler. The stereo, though, is quite nice, and it has a nice throw of sound, and the quality is also pretty good. Now, in terms of overall build quality, both these cars are pretty much close to each other, but because this is a black cabin, the cabin feels a little claustrophobic, especially on a long journey, especially if you compare it with the beige cabin on the XUV300. But overall, I'm pretty impressed. I'll give it a strong score of 8 out of 10. Well, so in terms of the overall features, there's no two ways about it. This one wins the battle in the features list, because this car comes loaded with a lot of equipment. You get a seatbelt warning for all the passengers all across the cabin. You also get a system where you can increase or decrease the weight in the steering wheel, so it feels heavier or lighter. And you also get tire pressure monitors. But the most thoughtful touch is dual zone climate control, which means that there'll always be peace inside the car. If you have a nagging kid or a nagging wife who sits here with you and they keep complaining about the temperature being too hot or too cold, you can always tell them to set their own temperature, because it is dual zone climate control. It's a feature which the Nexon doesn't offer. In fact, no other car in this segment offers, and this feature is found on a lot more expensive cars. In terms of the ambience also, the slider fabric works better than the dark cabin of the Nexon. And in terms of utility places, you get a big tray over here where you can keep a cell phone, wallet and other paraphernalia. The glove box is also deeper than the Nexons, and the door bins are also larger, and they can house 2 big 1-liter bottles, and you can also place these bottles here. And you also get a big box over here where you can keep a few Diet Coke cans. So what I'm trying to say is that once you enter the cabin of the XUV300, all you'll say is, wow, what a nice cabin. One thing is for sure, that Tata Motors do not cut costs when it comes to the seating, because the seats on this car offer you great cushioning, great support for the lower back, and very good support for your under thighs as well. In terms of the knee room, both cars are really close to each other. Headroom is also pretty similar, but this car has a big advantage that it has its own AC vents. In terms of width also, it's pretty similar, but those AC vents do give it an advantage. But there's a big negative on this car, and that is that the C-pillar is very thick, so that makes the cabin feel dark and dingy, especially a black cabin like this. And that's the benefit that that car has, because it has that beige interior and it feels a lot more airier than this car. The other negative is that the window doesn't go all the way down, so maybe sometimes when you do this, it will interfere with your hand. Well, so in the XUV300, you don't get any AC vents at the back, which is something that car has to offer. Knee room is pretty much the same. Headroom is also pretty similar. The seats, though, are good in terms of comfort, and it's a wide seat, which means you can have 3 occupants over here. So it is neck and neck in terms of space, as well as overall practicality in the back seat. But yes, the XUV300 doesn't get its AC vents, but because this is a beige car, the cabin is all beige, it feels like much brighter and a much more airier cabin than it does inside the Nexon. I'll give this one a strong score of 8.5 out of 10. Well, so it's a no contest when it comes to the boot department. As you can see, the Nexon's boot is much bigger. It's also better shaped. There's a bit of a sill, but you can easily forgive it because it is a deeper boot. So I'll give this one a score of 9 out of 10, and that one gets only a 7. While talking about the boot on the XUV300, this is the weakest link on this car. As you can see, it's a very small boot. In fact, it's more like a hatchback boot rather than a compact SUV's boot. So that's a big disappointment on this car, but that, as I just said, is the only major negative.
Ashish Masih's top tip.
Well, so both these cars come with petrol and diesel engines, but today let's only talk about the diesels because diesels are the ones which are better. This one makes about 100 bhp, it's the same 115. Now, in terms of the capacity, both are identical 1500cc engines, but this one makes lower power, it makes about 100 bhp compared to the 115 on that one. In terms of performance, both cars are pretty good. Now, the Nexon offers you exemplary ride comfort. The ride comfort on this car is by far the best on any compact SUV, whether it's driving in the city or on the highway, on broken patches of road, on a flat road. This car is just brilliant to say the least. And if you are someone who does a lot of long distance journeys and want to do those journeys in a compact SUV, then this is the car to go for because it is simply amazing. What you'll also like is the steering wheel because it has very good weight distribution. It's neither too heavy, neither is it too soft. So you have the right amount of weight. It's decent in terms of accuracy as well, and you'll enjoy driving this car. The gearbox, though, the manual gearbox needs a heavy hand to shift. The clutch also is slightly on the heavier side compared to the one on the XUV300. So maybe for people who drive a lot in the city, they'll prefer that car. It's not too much of a difference, but yes, because we're comparing, there is a definite difference which is visible. In terms of visibility, this car's A-pillar is much chunkier than that car, so you have to look around it. And also the visibility from this mirror over here isn't the biggest or the best because the C-pillars at the last are very, very chunky. So you have to look around a bit, but it's quite okay. It's not such a big issue. In terms of refinement, it's a good car, but the good point is that the cabin is really well isolated from all the noises on the outside. Tata Motors has done a great job with the insulation of the cabin. You get no tire noise, no wind noise, and if a biker decides to come right next to you and has a fight with his girlfriend on the phone, well, you'll try to hear them eavesdrops on their conversation, but you won't be able to hear much because the cabin is so well isolated from everything that's happening on the outside. So Tata Motors has done a great job with that. Overall, what I'm trying to say is that this is a car which offers you great ride and great comfort inside, and it also offers you a refined cabin. This one does have this button where you can move it around and it goes into sport mode. You can choose from city or eco mode as well, and in sport mode it just becomes a little more livelier to drive. The engine becomes a little more livelier and it just feels a little more responsive to your throttle inputs, but other than that, nothing else changed. Well, so here we are driving the XUV300, and both these cars come with petrol and diesel engines, but today we'll talk only about the diesels. Now this one also gets a 1500cc engine, but this one makes 115 bhp. In terms of outright power delivery, it's more powerful than the one on the Nexon, and you can definitely feel the difference. Where it also excels is in overall refinement. It is a step ahead in terms of refinement. It's also better in terms of responsiveness, which makes this car a better car to drive in the city. Yes, it's a better car for city driving because the engine starts responding for about 1500-1600 rpm, and you'll also prefer this one in the city because the steering wheel is really light in the comfort setting, and the gearbox and the clutch also are very light. In fact, the gearbox is a very nice unit. It's a light unit and doesn't need a heavy hand to shift. So driving this kind of city will be much easier on your arms and forearms than the Nexon. Now, in terms of ride comfort, in the city it is decent. It'll give you decent ride and decent comfort when you're driving this kind of city. On the highway, the ultimate stability is with that car. This one is also pretty stable, but that one feels slightly better for higher speeds. Now, the good thing about this car is the 6th gear, which means that engine flexibility is greatly enhanced. If you're driving this car on the highway doing speeds of about 110 kph, then the 6th gear means that the engine is spinning at 1800 or 1900 rpm, which makes the cabin a very quiet place to be in. In terms of visibility also, it's a better car because the A-pillar isn't very chunky. You can look around it, the rear view mirrors are large, and the view from this mirror is also very good. And the last pillar, the C-pillar, also isn't as big as the one on the Nexon, so visibility is better on the XUV300. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that if you drive primarily in the city, then this is the car for you because that one offers you a much heavier steering and a much heavier set of controls. This one feels better for driving yourself in the city. Of course, if you want a steering wheel which becomes heavier, you can always use this button over here and change the settings of the steering wheel. And once you do that, the sport mode makes the steering feel a lot more heavier. And of course, if you change it from sport to comfort, it becomes a little lighter. And then of course, there's normal mode between these two, which is a good mode to choose as well. But yes, you can have that choice if you wish to do so. only negative on the XUV is that tiny boot. Other than that, it comes loaded with features. It's really nice to drive and the cabin feels very posh and upmarket as well. But to be honest, both these cars are really good and you can't go wrong with either one of them. Well, if you want a car to drive primarily in the city, then the XUV300 is the car of choice for you because it offers you a very plush cabin, a long list of features, and also it has a very upmarket feel to it. That said, the Nexon is the better car for highway trips. It offers you very sturdy and very solid ride comfort and also offers you the much bigger boot. I'd give the XUV300 a 90 out of 100 in today's comparison, and the Nexon will get the same 90 as well. It's bye for now and hope to see you soon.